There are so many young players and prospects making news these days in baseball. Which ones are worth your time in fantasy, and who should you be picking up first? Now, normally I start out with hitters, but I can't wait for the pitching side. Let's get right into it. The Marlins have another young stud who is ready to crack the rotation. He already has, and you've probably heard about Eury Perez, the 20-year-old rookie who is maybe the next Randy Johnson. Now that's a lazy comp because he's just really, really tall. He's 6'8" and 220. The difference between Perez and Randy Johnson is, well, he's really young and he's a right-hander, but he is a hard-throwing starting pitcher who is worth your attention. Now, is he going to be a superstar? I mean, come on. He's so young and so inexperienced. You know what I keep saying about these young pitchers. They're going to be ups and downs. It's unlikely he's going to dominate every single start the rest of his rookie season. But looking at his debut, despite his age, not too bad. Went 4 2/3 innings, gave up 2 runs on 4 hits. Only walked 2 and struck out 7, and that's promising. That's what we're looking for. Of course, we want to see that he can get Ks, and we know he can do that. In the minors is a different story, but he did a pretty good job in his first major league start. So I'll go ahead and confess, I took the plunge here. I'm in the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational, which is a big tournament-style league, along with other fantasy analysts. I spent up on him on my fab this past week, about 20% of my budget, maybe a little bit more. I think it's worth it. This is the guy who's so talented. If he does come through, it's going to pay off huge. Pirates giving a turn to another young pitcher, and this time it's Luis Ortiz, a guy who climbed up through the minors really fast. His first start was really solid, only 2 runs in 5 innings, walked 1, struck out 1. Second start against Detroit, not too great. 3 runs in 3 innings, actually walked more than he struck out. Not going to repeat myself again, but young pitchers, you know the deal. Don't give up on him just because this second start wasn't too great. Has a chance to bounce back. He's got good stuff. Everything that caused the Pirates to promote him, and he's got a really good chance to stick in the rotation if he is effective. So many elbow injuries in that rotation now for Pittsburgh. I mean, they're giving a shot to all these young players for a reason. They're actually winning. Oh, they were winning, but they're at least somewhat in contention right now. I think if Ortiz is effective, he could stay long term. So if you're in a deep enough league, worth a roster spot. And now I want to direct your attention to a player that I mentioned in my preseason sleepers as far as starting pitchers go, a guy I was really high on, and that's Brayan Bello of the Boston Red Sox. This is a classic case of ignoring the season-long stats because right now you look and you see a 5.01 ERA, but over his last 3 starts, got a 2.81 ERA and is finally showing that he belongs. Along with that, an impeccable command of the strike zone, 16 strikeouts to only 4 walks over those last 3 starts. You know I'm all over him because I was all over him in the preseason. He's got him to scoop up wherever I can before people start to figure out that he's coming on. Now on to relievers. Here's a new name for you, but not a young player, actually at 29 years old, but I bet you haven't heard of Yennier Cano of the Baltimore Orioles. I can say that with confidence because I had never heard of Yennier Cano until this year, but you have to pay attention to him. No, not because he has 3 saves. He's not the closer. Felix Bautista still has that job locked down. You know, Cano has just come in when he was unavailable, different situations. He's the setup guy, fine, but you're not going to count on saves. You have to pay attention to him even in leagues that don't count holds because over his first almost 20 innings pitched this year, he has yet to give up a single run, and more impressively, he has no walks. That's pretty hard to do, and I think it's safe to say that if Bautista either falters or gets hurt, Cano is going to easily step into that closer role and get a bunch more saves. But this is the rare case where a mid-reliever who isn't necessarily guaranteed to get any saves, even if you're in a league that's just a 5x5 roto, doesn't have holds or save plus holds, is worth having just because he's going to help you so much on your ratios over the course of the season. Yeah, I'm guessing at some point he'll give up a run, maybe accidentally walk a batter, but you've got to believe in the breakout when it's this long into the season and he's still being so effective. But if you do need saves, well, then there's Tampa Bay and their closer du jour or du year. That's Jason Adam. Now, it's funny because before the season, he was expected to be the closer and a lot of people were drafting him. And then he wasn't the closer, but now he is because Pete Fairbanks, surprise, surprise, is hurt. He's on the IL And Adams got the job back, and he's doing what people had expected him to do. He's locking down. Got a 1.59 ERA. That kind of jives with last year's 1.56 ERA. Has a really high swinging strike rate. It's only 14.7%, which I say only because last year was at 17%. Now, as hard as it may be to trust a guy with two first names, I will tell you it's also hard to trust a Tampa Bay closer because we know what happens, right? These guys just rotate in and out depending on, how the wind's blowing. The only thing I would say with Adam is we know that he can get the job done, very effective pitcher, and the job is his. But he only has 8 saves entering this season, and that was all last year, so not an extended history as a closer. And again, this is the Rays thing where as soon as Fairbanks comes back, is it his job? Is it a committee? Are they going to bring in somebody off the street? Who knows? But right now, you need saves. If he's still available somehow, you need to pick up Adam. All right, now the hitters. Matt McLain of the Cincinnati Reds appears to be the new shortstop. That's kind of a surprise, to be honest. No, not because I'm surprised that he supplanted Kevin Newman or Jose Barrero or whoever else they've been trying out there. But a lot of people thought Ellie De La Cruz was going to be the guy. And at some point this season, it might be because he's one of their top prospects in the minors. But for now, they decided to promote McLain because, he was tearing it up. He was hitting .348 at AAA. Great play discipline. He walks a lot. And look, the Reds need guys that can just get on base. And what's promising is that already in his debut, had him hitting second in the order. So far, not too bad. Had a hit and scored 2 runs in his debut. Had a hit and drove in a run in his second game. So off to a good start. Don't wait too long because this is a guy who's going to fly off the waiver wire before you know it. I will say don't expect a ton of power. We know Cincinnati, we think of that ballpark. Great for power hitters, but this isn't what you should expect out of him. But the fact that he is hitting at the top of the order means you should expect some run production, running scored, and that's a good thing. So while the homer steal combo that you really want out of a shortstop isn't necessarily going to be there, this is somebody who can still help you in a pinch. And then there's one of the really shocking, hottest waiver wire pickups of this month. That's a guy that was on nobody's radar, probably not even the team that is playing him every day. That's Casey Schmidt of the San Francisco Giants. This guy was not on any top prospect lists, was not expected to crack the big league club at any point this season. He's a glove first kind of player. You don't see a lot of gaudy power numbers or stolen base numbers or any numbers really in the minors, but he was swinging a hot bat. They gave him a shot, and it's paid off in ways that nobody really expected. So far in the majors, 13 for his first 28 with 2 home runs. He has hit for average throughout the minors, and he climbed up pretty fast. This guy's only 24 years old still. So yeah, there is some untapped potential here maybe. It's just so far the results are a lot better than anybody had really thought. Now one thing is good is that he's making a lot of contact because he does not take walks. In fact, he has not taken a single walk yet in those first few games as a Giant and have very low walk rate also in the minors. My advice here, ride the hot hand if you can while it lasts, but don't necessarily expect any sort of a full-fledged breakout. On the other hand, I'm a lot more bullish on a guy I was high on preseason too. That's CJ Abrams of the Washington Nationals. Maybe he's finally ready. Was off to a terrible start, couldn't even get a base hit at all the first week of the season, committed those errors in opening day. It was kind of a nightmare. You wondered if he was going to get sent back. But being such a high-end prospect, of course, part of that Juan Soto trade, being on the Washington Nationals, he was going to get a shot. They stuck with him, and now it's paying off. In the month of May, he's hitting .326 and has had a lot of clutch hits late in games. One thing that's a little unexpected is his power's coming around. He's hit a couple home runs lately, has 4 on the season, and only 5 stolen bases. This is a guy who's just one of the fastest guys flat out in the majors, but his power is almost matching his speed in terms of counting stats. But we'll see what happens. Washington, not a team that really runs a lot. They're 20th in terms of stolen bases attempted per game. We'll see if that picks up. Of course, the problem is with him hitting lower in the order, not getting as many opportunities. So I'm tempering my expectations in terms of steals for him. But I am happy to see that the batting average is coming around and he is providing a little bit of pop. So I can't go so far as to say that he's necessarily going to reach his potential this year. Things are looking good, and if you need somebody to help you out in the middle infield spot, he's definitely worth looking at right now. I'm also happy to report that finally signs of life from Alex Kirilloff, first baseman for the Minnesota Twins. It was looking like the same old story for him beginning of the year. Wrist still bothering him on the IL, can't catch a break. So missed the whole first part of the season, finally back, and he is hitting. 38 plate appearances to his name so far in the season, hitting .333. What is very promising for a guy who's pretty much a slugger. His plate discipline has been great. 6 walks to only 7 strikeouts. With all the injuries the Twins, as usual, are facing, we see Matt Kepler now on the IL. Jose Miranda, who's just still struggling, got sent down to the minors, kind of a surprise there. Well, that means Kirilloff is going to stick. He's going to have a chance to play every day and hit in the heart of that order, so that's definitely a good thing. I like his chances to help you out in counting stats, give you some power at first base. And then I will admit, I'm not quite sure how to feel about Christopher Morel. A week ago, it was looking like a really great pickup, a smart move if you added him. And now I'm wondering if he wasn't worth the fab or the waiver claim or whatever, the roster spot, because Nico Hoerner, who had been on the IL, missed a few games, is set to come back. So I wonder, does that push Morel to the bench? He's been hitting great since he got back on the big club, but he might just be squeezed out of playing time here. So I will say right now, just kind of wait and see, right? Wait a couple days and see if he's riding the pine or if they're going to try to fit him in maybe on off days for certain guys in the outfield, play second base a little bit. This is a guy who's a utility infielder and outfielder, didn't really have a true home, which is why he started out the season in the minors, which was one of those kind of opening day roster surprises. Everyone thought after last year where he hit 16 home runs, stole 10 bases, and played a pretty big part for the Cubs lineup last year, that he would make the roster, and he didn't. But now that he's come back on, he was raking in the minors, but it might not last. So I would just say, don't make a move just yet. Let's see if they find a place for him. Maybe somebody else gets hurt and he has some more playing time. You might be looking forward to picking him up, but I would prioritize all those other guys I mentioned first. Don't just stay content to make moves on the waiver wire. You should also be active in the trade market all the time. Check out my latest buy low and sell high.